Judas Priest, the 50th anniversary of Rocka Rolla. The debut album came out 50 years ago. It has been remixed and remastered, so it has a different sound to it. By the way, I think it sounds a lot better. But I'll be honest with you. Listening to the reissue, that is the first time in probably 30 years that I have listened to the first Judas Priest album. In fact, I almost forgot it even existed. In fact, I remember people back in the days when I hosted my radio show calling in, hey, can I hear something off the first Judas Priest album? And I would be like, Rocka Rolla? And they would say, no, Sad Wings of Destiny. What's Rocka Rolla? Because to me, Rocka Rolla is probably the most forgotten Judas Priest album of all time. I mean, how many people think to themselves, hey, I'm going to go listen to Judas Priest? Am I going to listen to Painkiller? Am I going to listen to Defenders of the Faith? Am I going to listen to Firepower? Most people aren't going out and saying, hey, I want to listen to Rocka Rolla. You just don't hear of people doing that or saying that. But it's just one of those albums in their catalog people completely forget about. And it's funny because I had almost forgotten what that album sounded like and what the song sounded like on that, because I just don't think of that record when I want to go listen to Judas Priest. I'm thinking of Painkiller. I'm thinking of Screaming for Vengeance, British Steel. You know, that's essentially where I go with that. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're kind of like, they reissued it? Really? So obviously, I went back and listened to the album and listened to the reissue. A couple things. Number one, that record is completely different from anything they've ever done. Is it up there as one of my favorite Priest albums? Probably not. And what's even funnier about people forgetting that album even existed is the fact that back in the 90s, early 2000s, they had a double reissue of Sad Wings of Destiny and Rocka Rolla, but people would just see the cover and think, oh, that's Sad Wings of Destiny. So there were actual people that have emailed me or have called me when I used to do my radio show and essentially forgot that debut album existed. Now, it had a really funny cover, had a little Coke bottle cap on it, and it said Rocka Rolla on it. I mean, but folks, it's their debut album from the 70s. Personally, for me as a record, it has always been probably in bottom 2 or 3 records they probably have ever put out. Like, I would definitely listen to it over Nostradamus, for example, or maybe a couple other Priest albums. But I do appreciate the fact they did bring attention to that record. It also goes back to when I talk about reissues bringing relevance back to certain albums that people may have forgotten about. I think it's cool that they did it. Because I'll tell you what, I would have never probably even listened to that album again if they hadn't reissued it. So props to them for drawing attention to the Rocka Rolla album, the debut album. I think that album is phenomenal. As far as the way they made it sound. But, you know, it's probably in the lower tier for me as far as albums go by Judas Priest. Nice to see where they came from. And it's interesting to listen to. And I might want to add here, too, that they did a great job remixing it and making it sound great. And it's nice they drew attention to the record. Maybe most people, there's probably a lot of people that never really listened to it or gave it an actual listen. I mean, like I said, haven't heard it in 30 years, went and listened to it. But again, I mean, the songs are what they are, but they did improve the sound quite a bit. So if you are on the fence about buying it, if you've heard the record and you like it and you're on the fence about the reissue, I can tell you they made a huge improvement on the sound. So props to Judas Priest. It's nice to see them. And it's cool because it's something that I remember when I saw the news, the press release on it, I was like, oh, pretty cool. They're putting Rocka Rolla out again. And I just essentially forgotten about that album. Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.